Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and yes, we're back on track with horror movie reviews, who'da thunk it? And today I'd like to talk about a movie that just came out on VOD platforms today, the 2022 film Suicide for Beginners. This is a horror comedy that's written and directed by Craig Thiemann and also written by Ethan Hunter, and it was actually started as a Kickstarter campaign way back in 2012. But it finally got made, and it finally picked up some distribution rights, and today's the day, the big unveiling. Which begs the question, what was this movie about, and what did I think of it? And I will answer that in just a moment, but first what I'd like to do is plead with you, beg even, that if you've been watching my content and you've been digging my channel, please click like and subscribe. And if you do want to support me further, please consider joining my Patreon. It starts at $1 a month at the lowest tier. We have Discord benefits, watch parties, all sorts of good stuff. All right, now moving on to Suicide for Beginners. So this movie opens up by introducing us to the character of Garrett, who is attempting to write a suicide note. It's proving to be a bit difficult, though, as he's kind of going through several different iterations of it, coming with drafts, crumpling them up, throwing them away. And we come to realize that he's actually not writing them for himself, he's writing them for the girl that he has tied up in the garage. Garrett is a stereotypical self-proclaimed nice guy with a strong sense of entitlement towards the affections of this woman that has simply put him in the friend zone, so the natural course of action is to simply tie her up, hold her hostage, and kill her with a suicide note left at the scene, making it seem like she was the one that ended her life. Unfortunately, or fortunately, or however you want to phrase it, I'm gonna get to that in just a second here, things don't go exactly to plan. More and more people show up, the pizza guy's girlfriend, the landlord, so on and so forth, and everything starts going haywire. This is a dark comedy, and the comedy aspect of this is kind of entwined in the concept of how much further can this devolve? How much more can this go off the rails? How much can this plan go off script? And in doing so, how much chaos can be presented on the screen? Now, I did have a few issues with this movie, and I already kind of sort of touched on the first one there, the biggest one in all honesty, and that's the idea of having Garrett as the protagonist. It can be argued that having a protagonist in a movie doesn't have to make them likable, and we don't necessarily need to agree with their motives. They're simply the person that we are attached to as we're following along in the movie, and it's definitely the Garrett character that we are attached to. We're listening to his inner monologue as he's kind of going through these things. He's telling the story, not breaking the fourth wall, but even so telling the story to the audience of where he's at, why he's doing what he's doing, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, that voiceover narration doesn't really keep throughout the entire movie. Another issue that I had with this one is the title. I think that the whole concept of the suicide note was a good kind of entry point into the plot line and into the storyline and introducing us to what's generally going on, but having it be a part of the title, I think it's going to kind of work against the film in a lot of ways, just because this is a really difficult word, just in terms of SEOs, algorithms, search functions, things like that. This is going to raise red flags, and it's also going to bury it a little bit. In fact, I was honestly hesitant to even make a video review of this one at all, simply because of the fact that I knew that my video title couldn't not include the title of the movie, and knowing that my video title will have that word in it, I'm probably going to suffer in my own search results. It's going to be a bit of a tricky situation, and I think this movie is going to run into a fair bit of that moving forward. But taking those two things and kind of setting them aside and simply acknowledging the fact that a protagonist doesn't have to be likable, and Garrett most certainly is not likable, I would have to say that I moderately enjoyed this movie. There were some comedic elements of it that I think I would have enjoyed better had I been watching it with a group of friends, possibly in an inebriated state, but that wasn't the case. I watched this alone as a critic, trying to view it objectively in a sober state, and I really think that just wasn't the best atmosphere to really get everything you possibly could out of this film. So no, for a dark comedy, horror comedy, however you want to phrase it, I really didn't have any laugh out loud moments in this one. That doesn't mean it doesn't have comedic value, it just means that it just didn't tickle that funny bone for me personally sitting alone watching it. But I do see a fair bit of comedic merit within. It is a little bit amateur, it is a little bit ham-fisted, but it's there, and I appreciated that. And I think that most of that comes from the saving grace of this film, which is all the other characters. Nick Panning playing the character of Rick the Pizza Guy, as well as Julia Lehman as Abigail, his girlfriend, were probably the standout characters of the film.
So we're taking a bath now. It's a little weird. That's cold. This is cold. This is cold water.
Rick, the pizza dude that's always acknowledging the situations with a sense of dry humor and never actually giving it the emotional weight that it deserves, reminded me a fair bit of the Rad Chad character from 2019's Scare Package. And the iconic Sid Haig playing the landlord character of Barry with his Eastern European accent and dry humor in his own right also shone brightly.
Barry will kill you from the throat. And then I will brunch on you and your testicles with mint jelly.
I mean, I could shoot you right now.
Oh, if you shoot me, the neighbors will call the police. And then the police will come and make much holes in your body.
But that's not the only star power to grace this film. We also have a character played by Corey Feldman, who's not only on screen for a few minutes, but he definitely makes those few minutes count with some of the best lines in the film. I think the best and most charitable thing that I can really say about this movie is it's fairly clear that it's a low-budget production that has a high level of aspiration, and I think that it mostly met a lot of those. It never really felt that amateurish. I've seen far worse in terms of camera work, sound design, blood, gore effects, and so forth. I thought that this one brought a lot to the table considering what it had to work with. And also acknowledging that comedy is a very, very tricky thing, especially when we're talking about dark comedies where we're following a protagonist that we're kind of supposed to be hating at the same time. It's a tricky tightrope to walk, and I'm not going to make the claim that it didn't stumble along the way. Those high aspirations were not always able to be met, but I do think that from opening credits to end credits, that tightrope was walked successfully. So I think by the merits of having it be a fairly small production that kept its focus and its humor levels squarely in the gutter and didn't offer a whole lot of high comedy intelligent aspects to it, as well as being a comedy film that didn't really make me laugh out loud, I'm hesitant to give this movie a full blanket recommendation. However, being a small production, I do think that it actually put a whole lot on the table, and if gutter humor is your thing, and you like seeing situations continue to devolve, and you want to just turn your brain off for an hour and a half, I think that there are absolutely much, much worse ways to go than kicking on the 2022 movie Suicide for Beginners. My main suggestion, more than anything else, is to watch this one with friends. I think you're going to get a whole lot more out of it in a group setting. So thank you very much for joining me here today. I hope you enjoyed this video review. If you did, again, please click like and subscribe. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.